commercial signage, led by NEC Senior Product Manager for LFD, Rachel Carnani. I'm Heather Waterman. I'm AVI's Marketing Manager, and for those of you attending who might not know us already, I wanted to quickly touch on our company and why it's so easy to do business with IAVI. IAVI has been distributing Pro AV supplies since 1997. Our experienced sales team have multiple industry certifications and are located in offices across the country. We carry and stock your favorite brands like NEC, and every member of the sales team is required to attend regular factory-led trainings on the latest products and programs by our manufacturer partners, one we held just yesterday for NEC, in fact. Our sales reps have expertise in speccing complete solutions in multiple vertical markets, and no project is too large or too small. These are just some of the various solutions we've helped our customers create, and the list does go on. We're proud to serve as a one-stop shop for hardware and accessories, and our experience would just become an extension of your warehousing abilities. Your IAVI rep will help you take advantage of the registration expert at our bid desk, who can save you valuable time and protect your profits by registering every aspect of your projects for you. We also make sure we keep you updated on the manufacturer's most current spiffs and rebate programs. Lastly, before I turn it over to Rachel at NEC, I wanted to call out more positive comments like the ones you've seen on each of these slides we've received over the past year about our customers' experiences in doing business with IAVI and our employees. Their words are the most powerful tool we have to show you how serious we are about the relationships we build and nurture every day with you. Thank you again so much for attending our webinar. I'm going to turn it over to Rachel and her presentation right now. Rachel, just let me know when I need to flip the slides.
That's perfect. Thank you, Heather, and thank you, everyone, for dialing in today. I know everyone's schedules are very busy, so I hope you find this to be very informative on both NEC displays and solutions that we offer, but I tried to structure this presentation a little bit differently than I've done in the past, where, Heather, if you want to go ahead and go forward to the agenda slide, what I've put together within each of the verticals are some trends that we're seeing within the verticals, and then specifically what are some of the technologies behind some of these trends. So instead of hitting you up front with all the technology and stats, I'm kind of integrating it all together. And then I'm going to wrap up each of the verticals that we go through with a case study, to Heather's point about letting customers really give you a sense of the value of the products and the integration that's done out in the marketplace. Instead of hearing it from us, let's let you hear it from the customers. So we'll close each of the vertical sections with a snapshot of each of our case studies, and those are all available on our website, which is necdisplay.com. And then last but not least, I'll close out with some roadmap updates. I've included all of our information for our products and our roadmaps for large format displays. But my intention is really to spend the time informing you guys of what we're seeing in the marketplace. So, and then I've got some room for questions at the end. So, Heather, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide, we will get going. We will start off with the transportation vertical here. And transportation is an interesting vertical. I'll focus probably mostly on airports specifically, but primarily because they were one of the first adopters of large format displays, specifically with the flight information displays or FIDs. And if you think about an airport environment, these displays need to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's out in an environment in which people and dust and debris are going to be in and around, and temperatures fluctuate, and ambient lighting conditions can really be just about anything. And so this is just such a perfect market for when we talk about professional-grade displays. Displays when we get to talk about products for NEC, like our P-Series displays and our X-Series displays, where you have products from the component level on up, and then even through integration where ventilation has been taken into consideration for an install. All of these are meant to be out in the industry and in the environment. And then interestingly, with the transportation vertical, I think we're just starting to see a big refresh cycle. So I am hopeful and expecting to see some product refreshes And it's interesting to see the evolution here. So we've seen, as I said, within transportation, starting out with this more information dissemination in terms of utilizing large format displays. But we're seeing that morph now, and video walls are certainly prominent, and we've got some installation pictures here that I'll show you in a second. But video walls are really making a wow factor and a statement for any particular airport, whether it's a regional or an international terminal or an airport. They're really starting to embrace digital signage in the form of video walls. And then that opens up the opportunity for advertising systems. One that comes to mind that's just so eye-catching. It's been there for quite a while, but you're starting to see more and more advertising utilizing the displays, and that can open up a new revenue stream. And so there's some new thinking that comes into the airports. When we were talking about information displays, now there's an evolution. And then we've got kiosks and wayfinding. Of course, you know, those are pretty simple installations with somebody just needing to know how to get to their particular gate or terminal, and then interacting with the displays. And I think we'll see more within this particular vertical in terms of adoption from an interaction standpoint. Yesterday, I was on a presentation, and someone made the point that really any display that's mounted under 7 feet should be touch interactive. And now I don't know that that's necessarily an axiom that we all have to follow, but I think that there's something to be said for the adoption of interactivity at eye level. I know, for example, my daughter sees a computer screen and goes up to it and expects the technology to respond because that's what she's been used to. So I think we're going to see more and more of that get integrated into all of these verticals, not even just airports. It's just I'm starting with transportation. Directory boards we will continue to see. This is where the refresh cycle that we are in comes to be so important. And then indoor, outdoor, these are more for not necessarily digital signage applications. These are going to be more like outdoor when you're checking in, and it's going to be the information display. But it's something for this particular vertical to think about, because they have, while they've been running displays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they haven't been running them necessarily in full sunlight. And the thermal load caused by the sun on the display is an entirely different beast than if you have it in an air-conditioned environment. So those will pose new challenges, and I'm interested to see where transportation goes with that, and then how they go on to further the ad models. I know we see a lot of static signage, and I think that that's certainly a precursor, as you'll hear me talk about in a few slides in one of the other verticals. But that static advertising really tells you where there is a need, and certainly I would argue that being able to dynamically update and control and use content that is moving or videos, and it's very eye-catching, which is ultimately what you want your advertising to do. So I think that that is also an interesting place for transportation to go. So Heather, if you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide, this one will be quick. I just want to show everyone an example of, down at the bottom there, this is down in Columbus, or over in Columbus, I suppose I should say, some video wall displays that we have in the center there, and then each to the sides of the displays you can see an example of some really nicely integrated information displays. It certainly is in keeping with the aesthetics, and it's very welcoming, and it's making a technology statement just about Columbus in and of itself. So I think that taking this is the challenge for the transportation industry, is that it's taking this digital asset and it's making it's more seamless within the environment, and taking into account that environment is quite a harsh one. A lot of people, a lot of fluctuation, and the displays need to run for a long time. Heather, if you want to go ahead to the next one, this is just another snapshot of a simple video wall. And you can see it's catching people as they are walking by, it's catching their attention. So as we look and as we see, this is going to be a really interesting area for growth. And go ahead, Heather, to the next one. Sorry, I'm zipping through to slow down. One of the technological advancements that has aided this adoption of both video walls, but really large format displays across the board, is LED backlighting. And so a little bit more about what that is, because especially as LED backlighting was introduced to the industry several years ago, excuse me, there was a lot of confusion about, what is LED, and this is just to say LED backlighting is still an LCD display. It just utilizes a different type of backlight. And this enables a number of things. First of all, displays are thinner and they're lighter, so therefore they're easier to install. So given the limited downtime within the transportation vertical, being able to quickly install these displays is pretty important, and certainly important for managing the costs, which of course any airport is going to be under budget restraints. It also, LED backlights also reduce power consumption. So again, going to that, reducing the total cost of ownership, the move to LED has certainly been beneficial. And then from an end-of-life standpoint, displays that are LED backlit do not have any mercury, and so therefore disposing of the displays becomes easier where there aren't the state-level restrictions on disposing of the displays. So yet another reason that LED was adopted. And you can see the third point there, 71% of the commercial market sell through in the second quarter of 2013. And we're still getting data in, but it just continues to grow. And with really, if you take a look across the manufacturing landscape, almost everybody, if not everybody, has migrated over to this LED backlighting. And that's indicative of what a megatrend this was within the industry. Now, we talked a little bit about LED still being an LCD display, but within LED backlit displays, there are two different types, and that's what's illustrated on this page here. There is edge lit, which is at the top, and very intuitively, you can see that it is lit. Those little circles are where the physical locations of the LEDs can be. You can see on an edge-lit display, there are fewer of them, and they're just along the top and bottom, and it can be along the side and the bottom, or really any configuration that you want. But the point is that there are fewer, they're along the edges, and then there is some kind of a light diffusion panel that takes that light and provides or spreads it to be a uniform backlight across the back of the display. And you can see, looking to the right of that illustration, how much thinner an LED edge-lit display is relative to the one that's below it, which is an LED direct-lit backlight. So you can see, again, looking at the diagram at the very bottom, you can see there are simply more LEDs from a direct-lit standpoint. And why we call it direct is because there is an LED panel directly behind the entirety of the LCD. And there are trade-offs, of course, between the two. You can see that it is not going to be as thin or as light, and of course it will have slightly higher power consumption relative to an edge-lit display. That being said, it is still an improvement over the previous generation of technology. So you're still talking about major improvements. And then one of the other benefits, and where you see these LED direct-lit displays used, are in these video walls that are in the transportation vertical, among others. But I thought that this was probably a good place to start in just terms of understanding the technology that's enabling the growth and the changes and the future within each of these verticals. So that bottom there is the direct lit.
Rachel, I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
John is asking, is the direct lit brighter?
They do tend to be brighter, yeah. Now, I'm trying to think of all of our specs. Our LED edge-lit displays will still go up to 700 nits. So, it can all be adjusted. And that reminded me of another benefit, which we have yet to realize within the industry, but it's an interesting feature of the LED direct-lit displays versus the edge, is what's called localized dimming. And so if you take a look at that bottom picture, you can imagine a case where, the LED that is in column 3, that entire column can be on, and then column 4 can be off. And what that does is it serves to further enhance the contrast within an image, within a movie or some kind of content. and that can really enhance the perceived picture quality. And so that's an interesting tidbit, I think, about direct lit. And I think we're starting to actually see an uptick with direct lit and or LED backlit displays. And so we'll see how that technology with the localized dimming comes to fruition. That being said, you'll also see these max out at 700 nits max brightness as well. So the panel also comes into play when you're talking about the backlighting, the quality of the panel.
There was a follow-up question on is the illumination evenly lit on the edge lit display?
It is, and that's the benefit of the diffuser panel. That's what that is there to do. It's not, we've not seen any complaints about uneven backlighting with the edge-lit displays. So if you really got in there and you looked at the corner, you could see a little hot spot underneath the bezel where the LED is physically located, but that light is disseminated across the back of the display. There is slightly better uniformity with the direct lit, which is why we see, if you take a look at our video wall products, that's why you see the UNs with the LED direct lit backlighting. So there's not a problem with edge lit. I wouldn't look at it that way. I would just say that the uniformity is slightly better on a direct lit. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. Heather, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide, we'll go into the case study here. So this case study is an example of one of our early adopters here. This is over in Cincinnati, and what I really liked about this is just some of the sheer numbers of people that see the digital signage within the transportation vertical. And it, of course, makes sense when you sit back and think about how many people are moving through any of these various terminals. But this one in particular, I have at the bottom, with more than 16 million travelers through Cincinnati's 7,000-acre airport every year. It goes on to say that NEC's attention-grabbing digital signage network has helped inform, direct, and entertain much more effectively than the static signage used prior. And I think that this is one of the most simple but easy to understand and really impactful benefits of moving from static to dynamic digital signage, in addition to being an engaging, welcoming kind of a message that to the customers or to the travelers. This also created the new advertising opportunities, and something I didn't talk about before is the ability to have public address announcements or emergency messaging broadcast across these different displays. This was a pretty big rollout. I don't think I have the number of displays, and this was one of our earliest generations of displays. So we had a lot of early adopters within the transportation vertical. I think we're going to start to see those refresh, or we have started to see those refresh. And I think it will be interesting to see where this goes, especially utilizing the advancements within LED backlighting, the advancements within bezel technology. I know from an NEC perspective, probably when this case study was written, you were looking at bezel widths of 20 millimeters plus. Now we're talking about 5.5 millimeters from active area to active area, and we've even got one down to 3.5. So really moving the technology forward in leaps and bounds over time. And Heather, if you want to go ahead, if there aren't any questions about the transportation vertical, I'm going to move ahead to hospitality. Pardon me. So talking about hospitality is an interesting vertical. We'd reviewed one of the digital signage future trends industry reports, and there was an interesting statistic in there that was saying that resorts were planning essentially at like a 50-50 ratio of whether or not they were going to move forward with digital signage. And so I think that it's interesting because when you think hospitality, and I even still do this myself, I think the TV that's in the room, and I forget about all of the digital signage opportunities that are available, whether it's in the lobby or in bars. I mean, this really is a vertical verticals within verticals. You've got fast casual restaurants within hotels, and you have all kinds of opportunities for like a retail-like signage within a lobby. And I have a really good case study here with MGM and how they very creatively used digital signage. So beyond thinking about just the hotel room, there is, of course, the lobby, and there are a lot of things to think about with lobby signage. Now, unlike the transportation vertical, where maybe it doesn't need to be on all of the time, and of course, I know all of these verticals are going to be pressed for dollars. I definitely want to make the point, and I'll make this in a couple of slides, to talk about you get what you pay for. While maybe run times aren't going to be quite as high, that doesn't mean that a TV-grade panel is going to necessarily suffice or survive in something like a lobby environment. Another place, and I don't think I have it in here for a picture, but another very interesting use of video walls are another place where within a hospitality vertical, we see a number of our, from an NEC perspective, our V-series displays going, where these are good for collaboration, for presentation, and I'll talk more about our products specifically at the very end. Similar to transportation, I've got outdoor signage here with a question mark, because there is obviously the lobby, and I tend to very myopically think about Chicago and outdoor signage and think, who would want to be outside, in 30 degrees or below at a hotel lobby that's not so cold. But that certainly is an environment where in a large portion of the country a customer is going to find himself, and it's subject to all of the whims of the weather, with the dust, with the rain, with the snow, with the sun, and then, of course, with the ambient light. And so with that, I have it as a question mark, because those tend to start to be pretty expensive when you're talking about installing them in the right way with active thermal management in an enclosure. Directory boards are certainly I'm starting to see them more and more throughout the hospitality vertical, whether it's conference room A is over here, and then it can be changed over the evening or very easily to wedding reception. It's just a very easy way to get information out there. And then retail, of course, and I'll talk more about retail as a vertical itself. And then interactive here, I think that this is another intuitive place for interactive to find itself within this vertical. So these are some of the applications that we're starting to see within the hospitality. And Heather, if you go ahead to the next slide, I think this is a really nice shot of the MGM video wall that's behind their welcome desk. And they update this. I think if you look next to the face that's right in the middle, they have live feeds. I believe sometimes they even show tweets that are coming in and going out about the hotel, so you can just be very engaged with the customer. And just walking into this, I think a customer is going to feel very good about staying in a place like this. And then you can also have, or they also use this space for promotional. So that center, if there's a fight that's going on, they will advertise for that boxing match. Or you can have just simple pretty pictures that are going to add to the ambiance of your lobby. So I think that this is a tremendous installation, and hopefully you guys can see that in this picture. If you want to go ahead, Heather, the next topic within this, and this really goes back to that lobby discussion about you get what you pay for, talking about commercial versus consumer. And there have been a couple white papers published about this, because for a very long time we've gotten lots of questions, and I do have to say they're getting fewer and fewer, but about questions that are like, well, why don't I just go to Costco and buy a TV off the shelf and put it up on the wall for lobby signage? I'm not going to run it 24 hours a day, so it should be fine. And there are a number of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. First of all, the design. So if you take a look at a professionally or commercially manufactured display, the aesthetic is one that is meant to be integrated into the environment. It's not one, let the content speak for it. It's not that the display's bezel is going to be getting anybody terribly excited. So I think if you just take a look at the aesthetics, that's going to certainly be one element of why you would want to go with a commercial display. And then applications, run use, and run time. The displays are rated to run longer, and that's very simple. But along with that, and I apologize, it's not on this page, is a very important point about warranties. Just taking something that's an off-the-shelf for a consumer-based product and putting it in a commercial environment very often voids the warranty. So when you buy a display that's a commercial-grade display and you put it up on the wall, I know ours come with a 3-year standard warranty. You can upgrade that up to 5 years, and in fact, actually up to 6 with our P-Series. You know, we stand behind the design and the components and everything from the liquid crystal on up. And so that's another reason that you really don't want to look at that consumer-grade product. And then thermal protection probably should be first on this slide, because heat is the #1 detriment to the lifetime of display. And our displays and commercial-grade displays come with integrated temperature sensors and fans. And that's very important for just getting the heat out of the display. It's protecting those liquid crystals, and it's going to prolong the lifetime of the display. Another important point are video inputs. A lot of the time, especially within the hospitality vertical, these are going to be retrofit. We're coming in to replace static signage, and so having the legacy video inputs can be pretty important. So we recognize that, whereas the consumer model very often is just on to the next one. Excuse me. And this discussion actually leads us really nicely into the next segment. So these are important things, I think, that come up in education, which we'll talk about in a couple of slides. Heather, if you want to go ahead, we'll talk about the case study here first. And so this is the MGM case study. It was an installation of 700 of our displays from 32 inches all the way up to 82 inches, and it was in a variety of really interesting applications. And the takeaway from this and their challenge here, I mean, MGM wanted to convey information in a timely manner, but they really wanted the customer to walk in and feel like, yes, this was the right resort. I made a good decision in coming here. And they recognized that the ambiance mattered tremendously, and with that, being a technological leader was the direction they wanted to go. And so they did everything from menu boards, they had branding, and then a lot of promotional for their clubs, for their restaurants, so that their guests knew what was going on all around the hotel, and they could see how many options they had there. They also liked the flexibility that the digital signage provided them, and they could schedule it throughout the hotel with various remote management. I think the other couple of points that I hit on them. I definitely encourage you guys to go out and read and download, or maybe Sarah, I have them all on my computer. I can send them to you to send out to the team just to read through. I've tried to corral the highlights here to see kind of how we've gone from a single display to a really cool application, overcoming various challenges. So I would definitely encourage everyone to go out and take a look at these, and especially this MGM one. If there are no questions about hospitality, I'm going to move on to the next one. So now we're going to talk about the education vertical. And the way we segment the education vertical, we really look at in-classroom and out-of-classroom. And I think that when a lot of people think about education, they think only about projectors in classrooms. And there's a lot of places for large format displays. And one of the trends, before I get into some of these example installations, one of the trends that I see for large screens are what I'm calling large screens. So these are the 70, 80, 90-inch displays. And these really can compete with the projectors. Now, no one tell the projector product manager that I said that, but these are going to be really interesting to see how they take off within the education vertical, and that's in the classroom. So now shifting to out of the classroom, you can see there's a whole host of ways that these displays are being used. I'm actually going to start there at the bottom with the emergency alert, because I think it's been in the news so much, and just getting information disseminated around the campus quickly, whether it's text. I mean, you can see schools have gone to text messages, but you can have text tickers across your large format displays, and that's any of the large format displays. So if it's being used as a video wall or for just campus communications, all of these things can be pinged so that when an emergency message needs to go out, it goes out across the board. We're certainly seeing our displays used for wayfinding around various college campuses, and this is probably where I'm remiss, I apologize, in including outdoor digital signage, because this is someplace with so much outdoor space available. I'm anticipating that there's going to be growth in higher ed just from an outdoor standpoint. Directories, and then this is where we've had historically a lot of success, and I'm moving up instead of coming down this list here. But donor boards, Hall of Fames, kind of these mini museums within the university. And whether it's because the funding is there from an alumni base, it's for a variety of reasons, or this is just the next advancement within the university and the next initiative. These have been pretty big adopters of large format displays to date. So if you want to go ahead, Heather, I've got just a couple examples. One is Applic here, it's their corporate, but it's along the same lines of what we're seeing on the left-hand side, where the digital signage is going to make that technology statement. And this is where I think universities are particularly going outside of the classroom. And I'll talk more about this with the case study for this vertical, but utilizing digital signage and whether it's a video wall or a donor board, it really makes a statement about the university and being technology forward, and it can go to create a very tech-savvy environment, also enabling students to use the technology that they're going to need to be able to use when they get out into the world. So I'll talk more about that when we get to the case study. But you can see some of the examples about how that might be the case on this particular slide. Heather, if you want to go ahead. I'd alluded to this, talking about the larger displays, really moving into the classroom. And so you can see here, there's certainly a race here, and it's not ours, but the largest LCD display, I mean, we're now over 100 inches. So certainly getting to be quite large just for a single display. And I think that some of these, specifically these interactive, whether they're interactive whiteboards or whether they're presentation boards or collaborative boards, I've seen a number of installations where like a 65-inch display is being used in like a conference room or a huddle room, where it's a bring your own device, and you're going to plug in and you're going to collaborate, and the walls are painted with whiteboard paint, and it's just all about enabling that learning environment using technology that is collaborative, and larger displays are only going to go to enhance that. And then I think you're also going to find these larger displays at the front of classrooms as well. We're going to go ahead. We'll jump into the case study here. So our case study comes from the University of Central Florida. They had 24 displays in different sizes, and this is the real challenge for them was not only providing the relevant news, wayfinding, and just making the accessibility of the computer lab easier and better for students. It'll come out, and you'll see it in the case study when you read it. It's very much like MGM, where that environment comes into effect here, where they wanted to create the tech-savvy environment, and that's what they wanted to showcase there on the left. You can see the displays are seamlessly integrated into the environment, and they provide a lot of different things. So it's not that there is a set display for promotions. We've got different displays doing different things, or a number of different things. So it could be displaying the news or weather. It could be acting as wayfinding, and then, of course, TV entertainment as well. This provided a nice facelift, and one of the things that went into this particular installation was just future-proofing the design so that it can change and adapt, so that when students are bringing Macs versus PCs to the classroom, when technology gets updated, they're already ready for that next step in terms of technology that they've integrated. All right, and if there aren't any questions, I will move on to the retail vertical. So now retail represents between 28 and 30% of the total market, and it's actually been pretty steady for the last few quarters. And we're going to talk about video walls, I think, most importantly within this particular vertical, specifically because of that first point. They really help focus on the wow factor. And there are a number of things that retailers are trying to do within the store. They want to increase, and in fact it's been shown that digital signage increases the amount of dwell time. I think I saw the statistic, it was between 20 and 30%, which then of course leads to increased in-store buying and increased impulse buying. So very important return on investment numbers for customers. Now, that's not to say that measuring a return on investment is very easy. I think we've had a couple pieces go out that really one of the most important things, and it comes to head within the retail vertical, is clearly defining the objective of the digital signage, because it can do so much. So is the objective to increase that dwell time, or is the objective to increase the brand experience of the store? There are a lot of different ways to go about having a digital signage installation. So defining that clearly is definitely one of the keys to success. One of the technologies that we've been seeing enabling that success is interactive. That comes pretty simply in the form of wayfinding, and it can go all the way up to a car finder where you're building your car in the showroom of a dealership. So that interactivity, and it can be a single person, it can be multiple people, and having the right technology behind that. So the question from a technical perspective, is it IR technology or is it optical? And so there's a lot that goes into that side of it, but certainly interactivity is important. And I think it's also one of the trends within retail that has made technology the most accessible. So we're very comfortable with interactivity and expecting interactivity. So it's one of the reasons that I think we see digital signage and technology start to creep into this vertical more and more. I'll talk a bunch about video walls in a second here, and then I just want to talk about end cap. We're seeing some growth in integrating end cap solutions. So those might not be the 90-inch displays, of course, but that is a nice small place for signage that can be dynamically updated. And then what makes it really interesting are the analytics that can be behind it. So is the customer engaging with the product that's on the shelf beneath the ad, or what are they doing with it? There's a lot that is being done. There's been a lot of work that has really improved the analytics, and all of that goes back to the return on investment question. Being able to measure that certainly makes any marketer or any person making the significant investment that is digital signage that much sure about that decision. So I think we should look for analytics as we move forward, and I think that probably within the retail vertical is where we're going to see that come. So go ahead and move forward to the next slide. This is an installation that was done at Cabela's, and that's going to be our case study that we'll talk about. And you can see that video wall blends pretty seamlessly into the overall look and feel of the store. So you've got your dynamically updated digital signage right up there next to the wall-mounted fish. So I think that's a pretty cool installation. Then beneath that, if you want, or next slide, if you want to take a look, this is a more interesting installation. I think this is United Colors of Benetton, but a very eye-catching video wall in a very artistic kind of format. So go ahead to the next slide. You can see someone with interactivity here on one side of this slide, and then on the other side of the slide, that's a perfect end cap within a kiosk, and that's nice to see. A nice installation with, it looks like they're actively managing their thermals. And you can go ahead to the next slide. I'm going to start talking now about some of the technology that's enabling our video walls, and so this we classify as our ultra-narrow bezel displays. And so you can see here, and this is a little bit dated, we're always behind in terms of having data for the industry, but 62.6% of all large format display sales in 2013 had smaller bezels than 20 millimeters. And I'll show you, there's some installations, for example, that Cabela's one that you saw up on the wall, you might not need to have 3.5 millimeters because they're being viewed at such a far a distance that you can get away with a larger bezel. And that's an important consideration to make when you're looking at the install environment. But what this does, as you go smaller and smaller with bezel, you can, of course, maximize the viewing capability of the content. No doubt the video walls deliver the wow factor. And there's the way video walls are constructed. I mean, we're really making it pretty flexible. I've even seen curved video walls, so you're able to get them up. And going back to our LED conversation at the beginning, having those displays that are just designed to be in a more public environment, that are thinner and lighter and easier to get up on the wall, definitely makes for more flexible, faster installations. Unmatched brightness and resolution. So one thing we always advise is making sure that video walls are calibrated, because while we continue to work to reduce the amount of time that it takes to make an installation, you're still going to want to calibrate it at the end, because that was a certain amount of work, a certain amount of money that went into it. And so making sure that the video wall is calibrated, which is pretty easy, is one of the most important things you can do to make sure that your video wall looks nice and uniform and that your content comes across as you intended. And there's always an ongoing reduction in the bezel width. It's one of those specs we all compete on. So we're going to continue to push the envelope on the specs, and we're also going to push the envelope on the thickness of the displays, because recognizing that some of these can go into some rather tight environments when it comes to total depth availability. And so we'll continue to try and get them as thin as we can. So now the next 3 slides here just showcase what the difference is, and it's it's something that just I want to visually put out there for you guys to see what the difference is going from like a 20 millimeter down to a 3.5 millimeter. So Heather, if you could rather quickly go from 1 to 3, and so you can see those bezel width changes, and then just give me the go-ahead when you get to the case study, because this is just more of a visual experience for you guys. All right, I will assume that you've made it onto the case study since I'm not hearing anything. So this case study here, this is Cabela's, and they've had a rollout here. It started a few years ago, but I really like this stat. I mean, it continues on to today, where there's an installation of a new NEC product about every 3 weeks. So they've had these massive installations of 25 to 28 displays in a single store rolled out across 14 of their stores. That was at the time that this was written, which I think was earlier this year. And hitting on a common theme of enhancing the wow factor, enhancing the in-store experience, enhancing what the customer felt when they were in the store was the primary objective of integrating the digital signage, and they've had very positive feedback in that respect. Then they also updated their employee break rooms to include, I think there were at least 2 46-inch displays with speakers, and in addition to conveying a comprehensive corporate communication, it also can convey benefit information, news about upcoming products, so that employees, when they're out on the floor, are able to talk to new products maybe a little more quickly, a little bit better than previously. So using that technology in an education format. And then these installation in the employee break rooms also enabled video conferencing with headquarters or sharing best practices among the stores. And one of the things that they really liked with their deployment was being able to control and update content across their stores so they know that they're getting a comprehensive and cohesive branding across all of their different stores and across their store footprints. So I definitely encourage you. If you want to go ahead to the next slide. So I'm going to pause to make sure there aren't any more questions about the verticals, because from here I've just got our roadmaps. And yeah, okay, so we'll still have time for Q&A at the end too, so that'll be good. And so I'm going to just start, if you want to go ahead to our E-Series, and then before I move on, just to remind everybody, because I don't know about the familiarity with the NEC portfolio, we have 4 product series. We have our E-Series, which is our entry-level series. We have our V-Series, which is our value series, so commercial-grade product, our P-Series, and our X-Series displays. And those are segmented really by runtime and by brightness. So our E-Series, you're looking at about 12 to 16 hours of runtime a day. Average max brightness is around 350 nits. As you move up to our V, as in Victor, product series, you're looking at about 500 nits max brightness, and you are talking about 20 hours a day runtime, 7 days a week. And then once you get into our P and our X series, those are 24/7 products, and those are typically 700 nits with the exception of our high bright, which is going to be 2,000 nits. So that's very, at a 30,000-foot level, our product series. So now I'm going to just give you an update on what we have coming to market here and coming quickly with our E-Series. We are upgrading to our 5th generation of display. And just a note about the nomenclature. So the E at the beginning of the product series, you'll always see the designation for which product series it is. Then the next 2 digits are the size, and then the last digit tells you what generation product it is. So E325, 5th generation 32-inch E-Series display. So we're going to shift to direct lit LED backlighting on these displays, on the 32, 42, and 50, and I believe also the 58. They're going to be launching at the beginning of this year, full high-definition panel. So that's going to be an upgrade for, our 32-inch current generation is. That's nice. They're all full high-definition panels, and we're shifting sizes. So you're seeing now you're going to go from a 46-inch up to a 50-inch for the E-Series, and then 55 to 58. And, of course, we're going to try and stay at price parity. So you're getting a few extra inches for your expenditure. So that should be nice. Our 65-inch is actually going to shift to edge lighting. And then we've got our 70, 80, and our 90-inch, which are new to this product series. And we're very excited about these. Going back to our conversation about higher education and moving these into the classroom or boardrooms or collaborative rooms, that's where there, I think, are a lot of applications for these particular products, and they'll be priced competitively. We're looking at about a January launch for those as well, and then we're looking at March for the 90s. So if we want to go ahead and talk briefly about our V-Series. So these are about 500 nits max brightness, 20 hours of runtime. You can see our current generation of V-Series, we refreshed them. We completed refreshing them earlier this year. So our typical life cycle is at least a year, and so we will. These are going to be nice and steady state for the next year or so. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide, these are our touch integrated solutions. So going back to that education case study, the nice thing about our V-Series displays are that we have our baseline display. I'll talk about the overlay in a second. And then we also have, within the same or similar footprint, a touch integrated solution. So currently we have a 42, 46, and 65. These are touch integrated supports. I think it's up to 4 simultaneous touches. And then about the February timeframe, we're going to add our 55-inch and our 80-inch to that product portfolio. So these are going to be touch interactive out of the box. And that's important to keep in mind as we move to the next slide. Don't mind, Heather. With our overlay solution, We have and plan to maintain our overlay solution, which covers the breadth of our V-Series product portfolio for as long as that V-Series product display is out. And what's really nice about this is that if you have a 46-inch display that's on the wall and you installed it in June, and June of next year you say, oh, it's time to go interactive, we will have the overlay. And they're very simple to install. I think there's been some hesitation to having an overlay because it's not out-of-the-box touch integrated. And I've installed one of these myself. It takes 10 minutes, and it's literally putting the overlay on the display, screwing it in place, and plugging it in, plugging in the USB because it's powered over that. So it's really quite simple, and it's a nice way to future-proof an investment. If you want to go ahead, we're going to talk about P-Series, which 24/7 hours of operation, 700 nits max brightness. These just had a massive refresh cycle starting November of last year, and this is a full chassis change. So these have 2 expansion slots, one for our single board computers, a separate one for connectivity if you need a 5B and C, for example. The bezel got thinner. These are edge lit, so the display itself got thinner and lighter and consumed less power. These have DisplayPort 1.2, which can support, in like a 2x2 configuration, can support a 4K resolution. So a lot of upgrades with that product series, and we're going to hold it steady state for the foreseeable future. Now, our last product series is our X product series. So starting with the video walls, we have ultra-narrow displays in 46 and 55-inch configurations. And so within the 46-inch, we have a lower brightness display, and that's the first one you see here. It's the X464UNV, and that only goes up to 500 nits max brightness. It is slightly less expensive than its X464UN counterpart, which goes up to 700 nits max brightness. Both of those are going to be held steady state for the foreseeable future. And at the end of this year, so probably shipping in January, you're going to see us add the X464UNS. And what that S means is a smaller bezel. So this is that 3.5 millimeter bezel width I was talking about for video walls. Then for our 55-inch, we've got our existing UN, which is the 700 nit max brightness, and the UNS, which is the 3.5 millimeter bezel width, which has launched already. So, and those will also be staying steady state. Then to wrap up our X series, 2 more slides. We've got our Super Slim product series, which actually is going to come end of life along with our LCD 8205, and we're pretty much upon end of life now if we haven't run out of stock already. So these really transition to our P and our V series. So our P has a longer runtime and slightly brighter, but a lot of bells and whistles, and really is comparable to an upgrade relative to the X series. And then the V series is similar in footprint, but you're going to find that you don't have something like DisplayPort 1.2 as an example. But both of those should be considered if you're looking for a substitution. And then also coming up at the end of this year, we're adding a 47-inch high bright. So this is the 2000 nit max brightness product that I was talking about. So we used to have a high bright product, and we're coming back now with this one, which is an upgrade. Our old one was 1500 nits. If you want to go ahead, this one is the last in the X series, and this is our ultra high definition series. So that's designated by the UHD at the end of the product name. So we're going to have a 65-inch, an 84-inch, and a 98-inch coming here shortly, very shortly for the 84-inch. First customer ship for that should be about the November timeframe. We're very excited. I think that this is one of those technology trends that is going to be asked for very much by customers. We have a nice microsite on necdisplay.com about ultra-high definition products that I would encourage you to take a look at as well. And then we've got the 84-inch coming in November, followed by the 98-inch in February, and then the 65-inch. It's looking like March, and I think that date will probably hold. So coming up here pretty shortly for our ultra-high definition products. And that is the end of the presentation. I don't know if there are any questions that I can answer, but I definitely thank you all for attending.
Rachel, we'll take a minute to take over on the chat.
Perfect.
Apologize if you are sending a chat and we're not getting it. We have a question asking about integrated Wi-Fi from Andrew. Do we offer integrated Wi-Fi?
We do not yet, and there have been a couple of reasons. There are some pretty inexpensive third-party solutions, and in fact, I can get a list of what we've tested with our displays that have worked well. So that's one reason that we've not gone down that path. It's added a bit more expense to our displays as well, and especially considering there are these third-party solutions, that's another reason that we haven't necessarily gone down that path. That being said, we continue to push for it. So I feel like every time we're over having new product discussions, we're always asking for that. So I hope to have it soon. And we do have integrated Wi-Fi. I don't have the accessories on here, but we do have within our accessory, we have an OPS, an Android-based OPS, or Open Pluggable Specification Computer, and that product does have integrated Wi-Fi. That will fit into the expansion slot on any of the VP or X current generation of displays. So that would be another route to go if you're looking for Wi-Fi.
Thank you. I think I see any other questions coming across. Okay, here is another. Okay, do you have a published list of models that are TAA compliant?
Unfortunately, I don't think any of our current models are. It used to be one of our 70-inch models was, but we've shifted our manufacturing, and so we don't have a published list, but that's because these are not TAA compliant, I'm afraid.
Thank you. See if anything else comes over.
No problem.
Okay, it looks like that should be the end of the questions. Heather has wanted me to share that if there are any additional questions that you have, you can certainly email them over to heatherw@iavi.com. I see you're asking one other question, but I'm not quite clear on what it pertains to. So let me just see if she clarifies. Oh, there's a question asking what file formats does it allow, but if you're the sender of that, I guess, are you speaking about the Android player, perhaps? Oh, he says he'll email it. Okay, sorry, guys. I'm working chat because she's unable to use audio. All right, so we'll take that one offline. And again, any other questions, heatherw@iavi.com, and we'll follow up with her directly to get your questions, responses sent back out. But I think that covers it. Rachel, you have anything else you wanted to add at closing?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks everyone for joining. I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I'm Sarah Ferguson with NEC also, and I am the account manager for IAVI for NEC. So we're a team here, and I look forward to supporting you via your IAVI reps. And thank you again for joining the call. And I, on behalf of IAVI and Heather, who cannot get on audio, she thanks you as well, and we look forward to your questions and working with you further. Have a great afternoon.